Good evening, all my South Orange Maple listeners, and all those other listeners in the towns of Millburn, Livingston, Irvington, West Orange, East Orange, Orange, and Newark. Welcome to In the Village with Anselm and Marjorie on the South Orange Maple Online Radio Experience and live on the World Wide Web at somewhat.org. And the only radio show covering all your news, opinion, politics, sports, and talk happening in the South Orange Maple and South surrounding communities. You can listen to us every Monday through Friday from 8 to 9:30 p.m. That's 8 to 9:30 p.m. And reach us at 973-327-3626. That's 973-327-3626 to participate in the discussion. We have an interesting program lined up for you this evening, and I look forward to your participation in the discussion. Now, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going solo. My co-host, Marjorie, had very important things to get done tonight, so she would not be with us tonight. So, I was thinking about, well, how do you start the program tonight with all the things that's in the news currently? So, I looked at the situation in the NFL. And as you know, we had this problem with Ray Rice, and now we have this big situation with Adrian Peterson of the Minnesota Vikings. And there is a big hullabaloo about women in the NFL. And rightly so. So the NFL decided to do something about the lack of women in the NFL and for what Adrian Peterson did to his son. What he did, let me say this about myself. I can only talk. I can't speak for Adrian Peterson, and I'm not going to try to speak for him. And I'm sure many of the individuals who grew up in the Caribbean and grew up in the southern part of the United States of America understands corporal punishment. Now, in growing up, from whenever I knew myself, my parents used to spank me for the things I shouldn't have been doing. Rightly so. They punished me. And I believe that the punishment that was meted out to me as a young kid has really helped me and mold me as an adult. My kids didn't get an eighth of the punishment that I got as a kid. There are so many things that caused me to be punished. Rightly so. Now, I wasn't punished to the point where it drew blood. But oh yes, of course, I got punished with Gova whip many times, many times. But the point I want to raise tonight is, you see, all during the day, I listen to many of the sports broadcasters, especially ESPN. And I heard one individual mention what I was thinking, and no other individual have mentioned it. They have mentioned it just as the NFL has. For example, there's an article in, let me get this right. This article is in the LATimes.com. LA Times. Roger Goodell names 4 women to guide NFL domestic violence policy. Now, this is because of Adrian Peterson. Okay? Now, as the Arizona Cardinals and New York Giants made final preparations Sunday for the NFL game, a small plane circled MetLife Stadium, towing a banner that read, "Goodell must go." 10 miles east on Park Avenue, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell and his staff had been working to restore his reputation and that of the league. Goodell was coming off the most turbulent week of his 8-year tenure, following his handling of a player who knocked his fiancée unconscious. On Monday, the commissioner sent a memo to all 32 teams saying NFL executive Anna Isaacson will take over newly formed job of Vice President of Social Responsibility, and he named 3 outside consultants to help shape league policies on domestic violence and sexual assault. All 4 are women. The memo obtained by the Times did not outline how Isaacson, who was Vice President of Community Affairs and Philanthropy, will develop a plan or monitor its effectiveness. It said Lisa Friel, Jane Randall, and Rita Smith will work as senior advisors. Friel was the head of the Sex Crimes Prosecution Unit in the New York City District Attorney Office for more than a decade. Randall is the co-founder of No More, a national initiative to raise the profile of and normalize the conversation about domestic violence and sexual assault. Smith is a former executive of the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And here's what some people say. These are top-notch people, said Patty Gigans, executive director of Peace Over Violence, a Los Angeles-based sexual assault, domestic violence, and youth violence prevention center. They are known for their commitment and their expertise in domestic violence and sexual assault. They have a lot of credibility and experience, and they have access to others who can also be helpful in making this paradigm shift. The National Organization for Women, now, which called for Goodell's resignation, said the appointments were a step in the right direction, but it's not enough. On Isaacson, now said in a statement that the fact that Roger Goodell is assigning a current member of his leadership team to oversee new policies shows once again he just doesn't get it. Another woman advocacy group, Ultraviolet, paid for the plane to tow the Goodell Must Go banner and said it's collected more than 15,000 signatures demanding the commissioner resign. Now, you see, this is part of the problem that we have in this good United States of America, because people tend to see things and think that that's fine. And here is my difficulties. This situation arose because of Adrian Peterson, a black player in the NFL, as well as Ray Rice, another black player in the NFL. But Roger Goodell named 4 women, and they are all white. Now, where are the other women groups that should be in an uproar to say, Roger Goodell, where is the diversity in you naming these women? And you know, you listen to radio today, and no one says anything about that. No one says anything, because it appears that that is acceptable. But it's not acceptable. And this is what I've been saying this over and over and over. And this is how the media decides what they're going to discuss and what they're going to ignore, right? We want to discuss Adrian Peterson and the beating of his son. That's big news story. We want to discuss Ray Rice and the beating of his fiancée, then his wife. We don't want to discuss Danny Ferry, the GM of Atlanta, and the racial statement that he made. We don't want to discuss Bruce Levinson, the owner of the Atlanta Hawks, the basketball team, the Atlanta Hawks, and the racist statement that he made. But we want to discuss that here it is. We have 4 women. Listen, good move, very good move to be naming 4 women. But why does it have to be one persuasion? Why couldn't it be one minority black or Hispanic in that group? Why not? But there's going to be no uproar about that. You're not going to hear anything about it in the media. You're not going to, because that is something that they want to leave alone. Nobody wants to talk about that. And that's why I think it's important for people to have other outlets that they can talk about things that the mainstream media decides that they don't want to talk about. It's no different than the judge in Atlanta, where no one knew anything about that judge and the whooping that he put on his wife, which was even worse than what Ray Rice did to his wife. But you never heard about that. We talked about that last night. You don't hear about those things because the media decides what information they're going to share with you, right? And what information they're not going to give you. And if they're going to give it to you, they're going to decide whether it's going to be a little bit here or it's going to be distorted somewhat. No, all day, nothing. You have heard nothing about these 4 women. And as far as that, the imbalance in these appointments, it's an imbalance. How else can you take it? You tell me they couldn't find, and listen, people are going to say, well, Anselm, these are 4 minority. Okay, fine. So let me be very specific. A Hispanic or a black or an Asian. Let me be specific. How come he couldn't find one of those individuals in order to put on that? Because that's not part of his makeup. He's not looking at that. He's not. And the ESPN and all the mainstream media and others, these guys are not looking at that. They're just saying, oh, we want to applaud the NFL for appointing 4 women to these different positions. Oh, it's a step in the right direction. Oh, yeah, it's a step in the right direction. But it's ignoring, and mind you, 78% of the players in the NFL are black. 78%. So these things, it just doesn't add up. And as I said, plain talk, bad manners, it don't add up. What did Bob Marley say? Who the cap fit, let them wear it. And these are some of the things that we see happening over and over with the media. And they're not even gonna touch that. They're not gonna touch that. They don't want to talk about that. But these are the things that are important, very important. No diversity. None. Zero. Roger Goodell it wasn't even a thought for him. And let me say this. I want to give one individual that I heard said anything about that. It was a gentleman by the name of Stephen A. Smith, who is on ESPN First Take. He was the one that said, I would have loved to see a black person as one of those 4 individuals, 4 women appointed by Roger Goodell. As a matter of fact, there was a black young woman on First